And you're in. Cool. Cool. Mr. Andrew Butler, what's going on? How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, Mr. O'Connor. How are things with yourself?
Oh, still going, still going. Tis a busy time. Tis a crazy world at the moment, but that's life. Um, so thanks so much for sitting down and taking the time to chat to me about, Taekwondo and your sort of journey and history and what you do and what you are and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I suppose first things first, let's dive into the sort of important questions. How are things with you in life and everything? Are you coping with being locked away? I mean,
It's a tad unusual to say the least. I suppose I got a phone call on the Thursday from the school where I have my club, and they basically said, well, you've seen the information come out from the government. We're closing, so you've no choice in the matter.
exactly the same thing happened to me.
Yeah, so unfortunately, that was the end of that, and it was a shame because I suppose we were getting a little bit of impetus. Now, unfortunately, because it is the school, you'd still close with Easter breaks and summer breaks and that as well. But there was a bit of impetus growing there because I'd started an adults class recently and some extra classes on the Thursday and stuff like that. So it was unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I suppose we'll dig into that. We may as well dig into it now. Like, I mean, what's your feeling about the fallout from this? Because I know I'm kind of thinking, I wonder how many of my students will still be my students after. Depending, the longer this goes on, the less likely we are to have people coming back to us. I mean, I know talking to other instructors, they're all very worried about that. So
yeah, very much. I was talking to another guy yesterday, and I'd say he has maybe the guts of 150 students or something like that, and he's exactly the same thought process. Well, okay, people may cope for a couple of weeks, but if it goes on longer than that, there is going to be a fallout. People are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to say to themselves, well, they don't know what's happened the rest of the year. They might have been impacted financially themselves. Everything, life is up in the air for them, so they may or may not come back again. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I suppose it depends on if enough come back to make it viable or not. Because it's a difficult one. A lot of people are sort of faced into this, but we're not the only industry affected. But it's the whole world is stopped. So I mean, we can't do anything, but we can talk happier times, and let's dig into that. So why don't you explain to us who you are, where you come from, and what your crack is with Taekwondo?
Well, to answer your question, it has been a long and very varied journey. I suppose I started when I was 12 years old. Basically, my sister came home one day and she said, "Oh, myself and some friends are going up to this martial arts club. It's Taekwondo." Of course, when I was 12, I thought I was the next Bruce Lee. Anyway, even though I hadn't done anything, so it fell nicely into my lap that she was going. So I went up for a look, and after that, it was kind of a case of, well, I didn't look back. That was 1986. It was a club in Clondalkin. The instructor was a guy called Brendan Ryan. Funny enough, actually, the Smullen brothers have started in the same club originally as well. Obviously, a lot longer after I did. So I suppose that instantly it was just something that I suppose I felt comfortable with. I had a great interest in it. I tried other sports. I used to play a bit of tennis, but football and the likes of that were never really something that I had an interest in. So this kind of it filled the hole where I needed something, needed an outlet. So the club itself was a great club. We were very competitive. We trained 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and a Sunday morning typically. So there was a lot of training going on. And as I said, I just felt a love for it. I couldn't get enough, whether it be the training, information, books, or whatever it was. I found myself and a few of us as well, we maybe try to find other clubs nearby. We do extra bit of training there. The instructor at the time, and then my sister subsequently took it over. There was a club in Bolton Street College. So I was still in secondary school. We used to go in there, do a little bit of extra training as well. So it took, let me see, gradings and stuff like that. I actually went through fairly quickly. I got, let me see, so I started September 86. I was black belt, what was it, the December 3 years later. So kind of went through the grades fairly quickly, but I suppose it was down to the amount of training I was doing at the time. We would have been part of the AITA at the time, the All Ireland Taekwondo Association, which then eventually became the ITA where we are now. So very similar crest on my dough book ever since.
I remember I have an AITA dough book as well, kicking around with the zips in it and the the crest on the chest. So yeah, I remember those ones.
And all the grade, all the grading books and everything like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I suppose
I must take that out. Actually, I have my grading book somewhere.
and all the results of the testings and everything that they were great. So I mean, as I said, we were a very competitive club, which was great. The instructor was very focused on competition, and we used to do a lot of sparring, a hell of a lot of training. So we used to basically go to nearly every competition that was on around the country. The instructor, he was a crazy bread man. He'd strip the pallets out the back of the van the weekends, throw us in the back of it, and off we go to competition. With that.
Take that, insurance.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was back then. So it was interesting, but I mean, we loved it. I mean, I suppose when I got to around the green belt level, I suppose a second level of interest started to take off for me. I started buying books, trying to seek out other information, kicks especially. I was amazed by the jumping kicks and all that kind of stuff, and spinning kicks. So I started really kind of pushing myself on. I suppose I was the sadder teenager then who would stay home on a Saturday night stretching.
Yeah. Right. And this is. I mean, we'll definitely come to this later because you're a serious kicker now. I've just seen you once or twice, and we'll definitely twig into that and in a second. But when you talk about kind of competition history, like, I mean, what were you competitively focused across all the disciplines at your grade, or were you a sparring club or a patterns club, or were you, do you know?
We pretty much did everything. To be fair, there was the instructor at the time. I mean, the technical standard that we had at the time, not quite as good as where we are now. We wouldn't have had maybe as much access to information back in those days, but in fairness to the instructor, Mr. Ryan, he had a great focus on the technical and the sparring. So we covered the technical requirements, our patterns in equal measure as we did the sparring. And me, as a youngster and as a competitor at the time, I mean, I probably preferred the sparring, but I enjoyed the patterns at the same time, and I loved trying to get the technical stuff right. And like it'd be really getting it into our brains, you're not doing that right, really focusing the angle, the foot isn't right and stuff like that. So we had a good technical knowledge as best we could, I suppose, at the time.
I suppose you kind of had to be an all-rounder, at that stage. I mean, nowadays I find we see people coming through and they're 14, 15, 16 and they're specialists already, and I often wonder, and I was talking with Mr. Byrne about this, we kind of, I don't know if that's the best strategy sometimes, to be, I'm a sparring guy and I'm a patterns person, and I wonder about that one.
Yeah, I to me, it's not something I ever kind of deliberately thought that I'm going to specialize in something. I liked everything, so I tried everything. I tried to keep my hand in everything. I don't think probably as you're progressing and you're learning, it's probably not a great idea to specialize in one thing. Maybe from a competitive point of view, that maybe you're really, really focused on that one area. Maybe not a good idea. I suppose it's hard to know. It depends. The unfortunate thing, I suppose, if somebody is in their kind of late teens and they're a competitor and they're going for competition, in a couple of years, they may not even be in the realm of Taekwondo anymore.
Yeah, this is the other side.
See, that's the thing. Or they may come back to it. I mean, I found over the years, as I said, I preferred the sparring. I always did really well at the patterns as well. I was winning in patterns competitions as well. But
so that helps, right?
It does help, yeah. But I mean, the focus came back then. I suppose in later years we started to change around. Actually, I prefer the patterns now. But at least if you're equally focused on all, and you do decide, well, this is where my interests lie, it's easier for you to get on with it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, I think I kind of would sit in that camp with you there as well. I think it's more because you taste everything, right? And then you kind of decide, okay, I like this later on, rather than going, this is the thing I did really well in straight away, so that's what I have to be the best at,
Yeah.
I think that's a really, especially with juniors or kids. I think even in my club, I push them to do everything, and not to be. I mean, there's things people prefer. Oh, I really like sparring. Oh, I really like special techniques. Like, yeah, cool. Let's do everything and build a broad base that we can build up from then.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, because you get the same thing. You line them up. We're doing maybe spec tech or something that we're jumping over a big height or something. Oh, I don't like jumping. Get in there, you'll have a go.
And when you fall over, we'll all laugh. It'll be great.
Yeah, we were afterwards. Yeah.
I know. I mean, it's not like that at all. But I'm curious. So, I mean, well, how serious a competitor did you go? Because you said you're a competitive guy. You were in a competitive competition. So, like, how far up the ladder of competition did you move?
Well, I was coming home every year with national titles for patterns and sparring as a junior, which was fantastic. Getting the big trophies with the overall stuff and that kind of thing, which was nice. I suppose I competed. I suppose be corny here. I competed with myself to get better as well. But I mean, that's a natural thing you do with Taekwondo anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was it was great. All was going well up until kind of the mid-teens. You know, I was with junior black belt then. What was I, 15? Again, doing well in competitions. 16, yeah, not too bad. Hit 17, and now you're in with the seniors.
It's a different world.
Thank you.
It's a different world, isn't it? That jump from junior to senior, it's huge.
Oh, it is, yeah, big time. I mean, at the time we had some fantastic competitors. I mean, the likes of who's now master Terry Donnelly at the time. I mean, suddenly I'm going from sparring guys who were in their teens to sparring Terry Donnelly, who at the time was legendary. And my God, the guy could kick as well. And you're going into a completely different world.
Yeah, it's a big step. It's a big step. And was there was there a national squad that was available to you, or was that an avenue that you pursued?
Yeah. I mean, we used to regularly have squad sessions, training sessions. They were run by Mr. Aidan Walsh at the time, who would have been the chief instructor for the AITA. And I suppose the odd time they've been in various locations, but some of the time they were in his club. And we used to attend those. We used to try and get to Irish squad. Certainly our instructor, Mr. Ryan, he made Irish squad a couple of times, and we would have trained for, I suppose, international competition, world championships. I only really went to the one world championships when I was, what would I have been? I think I was 17, something like that. By that stage, I went through a few rounds. Unfortunately, I didn't place anywhere. Now, the Irish squad did quite well that year. But we would have been. That was my second one. The first one was in '88, where I was just just watching, basically spectating, because I was only a red belt at the time. So yeah, I suppose I would have pushed myself on in the early years anyway.
And so, was there a conscious decision at some point you go sort of say, right, you know what, I can't be a competitor? I mean, at what point was it? Did life take over, or was it a conscious decision to go, you know what, I just haven't. This is a step that I can't go down, or a road I don't want to go down at this moment.
No. I mean, it wasn't an overly conscious decision. Yeah, I think it was more life taking over and your own life journey interfering with your Taekwondo journey. There's no point where I said, that's it, I'm not going training anymore, throwing in the dough book into the back of the wardrobe. So I suppose between leaving certs in college and all that kind of stuff, work placement, work and all that kind of stuff, eventually put a halt to the training. I mean, even in college, I still trained. As I said, my sister had that club in Bolton Street, so I used to go out, do a bit of training. Funny enough, another fifth degree I met recently, he was telling me that myself and my sister were his first instructors.
It's funny the way the world works, isn't it?
Yeah. So I suppose at that point, I started to take I suppose, a leisurely approach to the training, and eventually, I suppose, between working and stuff like that, it eventually stopped for a while.
Okay, and so I mean, you weren't. I mean, so you're here. What grade are you now? You're sort of sitting around. I'm gonna say.
It would have been second degree. So I graded for second degree. I think it was the end of '91. I think it was end of '91, something like that.
And then, so I mean, what happens then? I mean, at some point, you do you just exclusively train in Bolton Street? Do you still train with Mr. Ryan up in I forget where it was.
Yeah.
How did the journey progress for you? Where did you go to? How did you get from being a student to kind of where you're? I don't want to say where you are now as an instructor, but like, yeah, I do actually. That's exactly what I want to say. How did you get here?
Yeah, no bones about it. Yeah, so I suppose I would have been training with Mr. Ryan up until when I was in college. So I was training in college and still going to his club and that kind of thing. So eventually, what happened was that obviously the training stopped, went off the boil for a few years, got hitched, ended up building a house, and ended up in completely the other side of the county where I'd been from. So at that point, I suppose I'd been a second degree up until I stopped training for maybe about 6 years, and they were constantly asking, "When are you going for your third degree?" And I just never did.
Yeah.
So eventually I just found a club locally where I was living. So I was North County Dublin, and it was one down the road. Very handy. I heard it was a Taekwondo club. Just to basically get my hand back into it, or foot, shall we say. So this was the early days of the AITA were linked to this guy, and I know Master O'Mahony would have spoken about him as well. Heel Cho, this American-based guy, and he had this AIMA organization. So the club down the road was associated with this AIMA crowd. So I said, sure, I'll give it a go. Was very handy, 2 minutes down the road, very easy for me. So just to get myself back in, because I hadn't done anything for a good few years at that stage. So at that point, I pretty much went straight into third degree then. So I stayed there for a few years, and eventually went for my fourth degree there as well. Now I probably stayed there too long because it was so handy for me. I should have really moved on because the challenge wasn't there for as a technical point of view. Basically, the structure, the organization wasn't great. There was no real development. As anyone who gets to a black belt, you were completely lost. There was nothing really to do. So I eventually found I started doing a bit of training again with Master Donnelly, and kind of get my head back into where it should be. And, he's up further up in North County Dublin. Then I got talking to another old AITA person, Donald O'Donoghue. So he had a club at the time in Blanchardstown. Yeah. So he invited me. I said, "Come on out. We've a good adults class. We're ITA, proper ITF, that kind of thing. Come out and have a go." So went out to himself, did a couple of classes, and found my home again. Really, to be honest with you, I mean, that's the problem, of course. When you get to a certain age, trying to find a good adults class is really hard thing to do.
Really is.
It's damn near impossible to find a good adults class. So I fitted straight in there. There was a good gang of adults, maybe 15, 20 of us bouncing off each other, and all levels of ability. We had Martin Urushko, who's now coming out to Greystones as well.
Yeah, I've noticed. Yeah.
And Martin is fantastic, and Darren Doherty was another old head from the olden days as well.
Right.
They were training out there, and of course Donald I knew as well from the olden days. So it was a great club. And kind of it started to get me progressing that little. I'd been in the rut for a few years. Okay, I could throw it out, kick here and there. But technically wise, I wasn't getting anywhere from where I had been, I suppose, in the late 90s. So it started to bring me on that little bit more, to the point where I felt comfortable where I was going to do my own club. And then eventually, very kindly, Master Wheatley invited me out. He said, "Come on out to Greystones. We have a grand old club out here. You wouldn't mind coming out some evening." So again, same thing. I ventured out one evening. I said, "Geez, this is a great club altogether." Fantastic instruction. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better level of instruction and technical corrections, which is the stuff I love. If somebody tells me I'm doing something wrong, great. I'll take it all day long. I'd rather be told I'm doing it wrong than say, "Oh, is Mr. Butler great over there in the corner, all by himself?"
Yeah. I know. I mean, it's really important to get quality feedback, and I've always sort of said that about where we're training. We're very lucky with what we have down in Greystones. That we had that from the start. I've only ever had that sort of standard, which is lucky for me, I suppose.
Yeah, that's
I'm curious. Do you think having a club and a crew of people that really, like you say, can bounce off each other, do you think that's the catalyst for development? I mean, do you think it's easy to get stuck in that rut when you're out on your own by yourself a little bit without?
Oh yes, big time. It's very, 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 very easy to get stuck in a rut. So that training with the local club, I suppose I got stuck in a rut there to a degree as well, because I felt, sure, I'm doing great here. I'm better than so many other people. Sure, I'm the best in the world. And then you're in a small little bubble there. You expose yourself to what is proper talent and proper ability, and you go, actually, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Yeah.
A similar thing, and that's what kind of put me off starting a club for years, was because I didn't want to give up that element of training, because I knew as soon as I started a club, my own training would start to suffer, and it just happens no matter what.
Yeah.
As the will as you have, if you're working and you're trying to run a club and do all the other stuff, it's going to happen no matter what. So I needed that push. So unfortunately, with the Mr. O'Donoghue's club, he closed the club, unfortunately. So I had that couple of years where I was in no man's land. So I was running my own club. I was trying to feed a little bit off of that myself to get my own kind of enthusiasm, that kind of thing.
And Bolton Street was long gone at this stage, was it?
Oh, long gone. Sure, yeah, that was well finished by the time we finished in Bolton Street. There was nobody to take it over anyway. So it was a case of, well, I found life again when I found Greystones, which was absolutely fantastic. And you do need that element of different people. So there's a guy over there. Look, oh Jesus, look what he's doing. Oh, look what he's doing. And he's great. Or geez, that fella really knows something about this, or this lady knows that, or whatever. And you need that kind of stuff to say, well, Jesus, actually, maybe I can do that, or you need all those
kind of competitive camaraderie. It's amazing, isn't it?
That's it. And I've always been like that, where I try not to think that I'm the best out there, because I know I'm certainly not. And I'd always see someone say, well, I'm definitely not as good as that. I can see it straight away. Or I could look at something that I do now. I'm not that good at this. So you need that stuff. Now, just to put a mix into there as well, in 2010, I think it was 2010, my old instructor, Mr. Ryan, invited me over to his club. Now, in the midst of all the changing and me not training and everything like that, he went from doing an ITF club to a WTF club.
Okay.
So, or as they call themselves now, WT.
Yeah. Thanks, Internet.
Yeah, thanks, Internet, for ruining that. So he changed over to WTF. So he heard I'd been back training a few years, and he said, "Listen, would you come out to our club? We'd love to have you over." Just so, again, his infectious nature, he's so intense. He said, "Andrew, you have to stay here now. You have to come back training." So for a time, I was doing ITF and WTF.
Okay.
So I actually competed in what they call the Poomsays in the WTF.
Patterns equivalent, right?
Patterns equivalent, yeah. Won a medal. Graded for second degree in WTF as well. So I kind of did that for a couple of years. It was good. I mean, I liked it, and because I suppose it was that connection with the olden days, the old instructor. You know, that warm feeling. But I mean, like everything, you learn from other people, you learn from other styles as well. I mean, there was some great kicking combinations, leg work, stepping, movement stuff, just general things which I think I've kind of worked with at the time and I've learned from, and I still do elements of that myself from day to day.
Yeah, that kind of holistic training view of the world is, again, it's this whole thing of not being a specialist, even if within our own martial art. Does that make it, yeah, I mean, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I think everyone in Taekwondo, and any Taekwondo, has had a go of the other one at some point. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think we always sort of default to whatever we prefer. It's interesting, all right. Yeah. So tell me, when you decided to start the club, and how did you decide to start it? Did you just spin the globe and put your finger there? Because it seems like you're miles away from where you actually
I am.
So I mean, was it just luck would have us that or did somebody hear that there's a black belt hiding in the trees up there? Ring him up and see if you can take this hall off us.
There's some lad free over there. We need to get our hands on. Now, basically, what happened was I was toying with the idea in around 2013 of starting a club. I suppose I had a little bit more time on my hands at the time, despite having a new baby. Between work, wasn't overly busy in the work situation. So I said, right, maybe this is the opportunity. So a friend of mine said, right, this is where we are. I'm on the parents' council. They built a brand new school here to be ready for the start of September. New sports hall. Nobody yet. Would you be interested? And I said, right, sounds like something that could work. So I mean, it's a little bit of a journey over the M50, but I said, we'll give it a go, and that's what happened. That was in town then in September 2013.
So that's been on the go to 7 odd years now.
Yeah, coming on 7 years now. Yeah, 6 and a bit. Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. That's great. So 7 years driving the M50, but you like driving, so
love driving, love cars, and company is a great thing.
Over the car. We'll edit that out. Only messing, we won't. So how is the club going then? I mean, if it's been going for 7 odd years, how do you? I mean, are you training once, twice, 3, 5, 7 nights a week? What are you doing?
Well, initially and for a long time, it's been the guts of 1 night a week with several classes for several of the age groups. Basically, I'll take them once they're in junior infants. So once they're school going age, I'll start them and take them. For a long time, it was, as I said, it was only the one night with the I suppose the younger kids and the lower grades and stuff like that. And over the years, you've been trying to get more and more training going. With little, it can be hard to get, I suppose, an uptake. And did it last year, and now continued it this year. So now we have the 2 nights going with the two classes on the Tuesday, 2 classes on the Thursday, and we've the Thursday adults class now, which I just started a couple of months ago. So again, that's starting to get a little bit of traction, but like it unfortunately it was I suppose it happened everywhere. You lose some of your higher grades. It was like there was a cold one night, or well, a couple of weeks, and I lost a few that were coming up towards red belts. They were red tags. I was working with them to possibly get into a little bit of coaching and stuff like that now. So unfortunately, they went by the wayside. But there's another little group starting to come through. So we'll see how we get on with those guys.
That's cool. I mean, like, it swings and roundabouts. You know, you always see that. I mean, churn is churn. Like, I remember taking a photo of my club group, like, you know, very early into it. You know, maybe a couple of months into it, and I'm looking at that photo now, kind of 4 or 5 years later, going, "You're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone." There are 1, 2, 3 people still there. It's how do you combat churn, right? That's the age-old problem for instructors. How do you get around that?
Yeah, it's next to impossible. Again, and it's similar. Sure, I understand it because it happened to myself at the time. Well, I suppose it was in later years, because I eventually stopped training. But I think there's so much activities and so much access to different types of sports and things these days that I think the taekwondo sometimes comes off a little bit worse.
I mean, when you're not the national game, it's very hard to compete.
It is, yeah. You'll always resonate with some people more than others, and they'll find the interest level in the taekwondo to keep going. But I remember one particular chap now, and the mother was saying, "Oh, he's just so much on. He's doing this, that, and the rest of it that we have to stop a couple of things." The poor chap was being dragged morning, noon, night from different activities, after school, before school, weekends. It was a bit much.
And it can happen, right? I see it myself. You know, people going, "Oh well," and I'm a big fan of, you know,
disciplines. I don't think you should necessarily be. I don't think at kids' age, I don't think you need to be. Oh, I'm a taekwondo expert. All you have is football on Tuesday. Go play football. See you on Thursday.
There you go. Have a go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way it should be. I mean, even my own little girl there, she started taekwondo back when she was 3 3/4. Again, I brought her out to Greystones, and people, I say, "What are you bringing your child out to Greystones for? You're completely mad."
They're one of the only classes to take them at 3 in a bit. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why are you driving 120 kilometers over and back on a Saturday morning? But again, it was I suppose to get in my master weeklies classes and stage, and she's loved it, and I never pushed her once to say you have to go. I brought her a couple of times and say, "Right, what do you think?" And she just wants to go. So that's the great thing. And she's even told me she wants to take over my own club. So I think
there you go. You have a path to inheritance there, something to leave your legacy.
I have a limited lifespan by the looks of it.
yeah, exactly. And well, she's already started her own online school, I see. So you'll be you've got to compete now. I mean, I just realised the mic was broken while we were starting this, so I plugged it in, and it should all have changed now. So that'll be interesting. Anyway.
But yeah, like even herself now, she doesn't have too many things on, but again, she'll have maybe a couple of things during the week. But I think that you need to find a balance for kids' activities at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely agree. And I always find it's the children that come to me that are multi-sport or multidisciplined they're nearly always better at taekwondo than the people who are just doing taekwondo and video games or something, right?
Yeah.
They nearly always have that because they've got all those motor skills being built in other ways and other patterns, and it's really interesting. It's really fascinating to see that. It's like, oh, she's a dancer and she does gymnastics. Like, I'm perfect.
Yeah, I'll have that. Yeah, thanks very much.
Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you see that regularly, all right. Yeah, somebody's done a bit of gymnastics or stuff like that, and they're very stretchy. Suddenly they can throw a kick. Oh yeah, that's yeah.
The crossover is automatic, and you don't have to teach that pattern.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it works well.
speaking of throwing kicks, you've done that a few times in your time, and you're quite sharp at it. I mean, I've watched you kicking with great aplomb, and I'm wondering, flexibility is one of those things that people talk about all the time, and there's a billion systems for flexibility, and everyone has their way. And as somebody who is a competent kicker, do you think is it just sitting there and stretching your legs every day, every year, every hour? What's your thoughts on flexibility, and what would you give people, or what are somebody listening here who wants to be a better kicker but hasn't got the roadmap in their head, or at least doesn't feel like they do?
I suppose, I mean, compared to what we know now, compared to what we knew years ago, I mean, and I know there's some dreadful clubs out there, they nearly start with static stretching, which is absolutely dreadful for your legs and every bit of you. Like years ago, we didn't understand the physics as much and the technology of how our body works and the science behind it, so a little bit more idea of it. But the way that I've always worked it, and what I found worked for me, was targeting, I suppose, stretches that make sense. So don't stretch for the sake of stretching. So do a stretch that resembles, and I know Mr. Ford has started talking about this in his stuff the last while, but it was from back in the early days, this is always something that stuck into my mind. Whether I formulated it like that, I don't know, but I always did stretches that resembled kicks or would help a kick or would, along with general flexibility stuff. I mean, the only way, and I used to get it all the time, well, it's all right for you. You can kick. Sure, you have a great stretch. Yeah, but the only reason I got it is because I actually worked my butt off to get it. So, as I said, I was that Sazzer teenager sitting at home on a Saturday stretching and kicking. Yeah. So I think that you combine the stretching with the kicking. So I'd always used to do routines of kicking and different types of kicking, a little bit of stretching in between, and then I'd keep the full-on stretch, the hard stuff, for the very end when the muscles are good and tired. And I mean, the isometric stretching, I just use the wall, the floor, trying to get into the splits, tension, holding it, releasing it, that kind of stuff. Even I have one of those pulley things to put my leg in, pull it up in the air. So I suppose it's just being targeted now. What I do find over the last few years is I've lost some of my stretch because I just really don't have the time to maintain it. So it's grand to get it, but you really need to keep a little bit of maintenance in there as well. I mean, there was a time I could stretch at the wall. I could touch the wall behind me with my big toe. And front stretch, same with the side stretch, I'd be able to touch the wall behind me with the foot. The side one, strange enough, has stayed really good, but the front one's gotten dreadful.
Who knows?
I think I always in my own mind had, right, the side stretch is the harder one for the side kicks and stuff like that. So I'll put more time and effort into it, whereas I probably put less time into the front stretch for the downward kicks and the front rising kicks and stuff like that. So I found out over the last couple of years, and I need to really get a little bit more focused on that, trying to get a little bit more of that stretch back, because I know where I used to be, obviously, and I know where I'm lacking a little bit now. So, and funny enough, kicking always used to be good with my right leg, was always the predominant one, but now for whatever reason, doing side kicks, the left leg's become the better one.
Strange.
It's just crazy. But I mean, the key to stretching and kicking is combining the two together. You can't stretch in isolation, forgetting about the actual kicking and getting the knee positions right. I mean, there's a lot of muscle memory in there. If you train your knee to get into a certain position and you want to throw a kick, it'll just happen. I mean, I see it myself. If I'm doing bits of sparring and I want to throw a hook kick, I could be standing beside somebody, I want to wrap my foot around their head, or close range stuff. If my leg remembers how to do it, there's a greater chance I'll do it, and it comes a little bit more naturally because I'm training my knee to get into a certain position.
Yeah, this whole idea of kind of building that pattern and reinforcing that pattern in your head, so it's automatic.
Yeah.
The filing cabinet system, right, where you just put that idea in the cabinet and then you withdraw it every time you need it straight away.
Exactly. Yeah. It seems to work.
It's working for you anyway. So, I mean, what are your plans for the club? I mean, are you going to try and do you have much ambition to take it on to be a seriously competitive club? Is that the goal for it, or is that the?
Well, I at the moment would love to see more competing. It's been a struggle certainly to get the interest level up there. We have a couple of kids that have basically tried their hands at competitions over the years. And funnily enough, we started to have a little bit more interest in the Dublin Open, which unfortunately now is cancelled.
Yeah, just the way, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like everything. It's trying to get people out of the comfort zone. I think locality seems to be a little bit of a factor on whether somebody's that more interested in competition. I see that, and then talking to some other structures who've had clubs in different areas, they seem right. People in this area maybe a little bit more affluent might have that little bit of interest in the competitions, where less affluent area they may have a little bit more, funny enough. So I seem to have a gang there who are starting to get a bit more interested in competition like that. They see somebody coming back with medals, they go, oh, Jesus, I'd love something like that. So it's starting to work a little bit anyway. There is that little bit more. There's a lot more people wanting, with the sparring gear on and looking to do sparring. Oh, can we do sparring tonight?
Yeah.
That is great. So I think the interest levels are building.
Well, that's important, right? Once you build on it, Yeah. And what about yourself? Do you have any ambitions to get back on the mats in the foreseeable future?
In a competitive nature, not really, no. Jesus, when you see what the national teams have to do these days, no, I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? You're either pot committed or you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, I wouldn't have the time certainly at the moment to commit to anything like that. I mean, the level of training and the commitment that the people do, they're going for squad sessions and the teams these days. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Professional amateurs is the way it was described to me. It is phenomenal what these people are doing, and not just the athletes, coaches, and all the staff that are supporting them as well. They're just, eat, sleep, repeat.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's a great testament to the level of coaching and the knowledge base that we have in the country and in the ITA at the moment. It's phenomenal what we've achieved. When you compare it to where we were, I mean, even in the 80s and the 90s, there was some great competitors there. And I think we fell off the face of the earth for a while and then eventually came back again. But the way that people train and the knowledge and the science that goes into understanding how the matches work and how the body works, it's seriously impressive.
I think we all agree on that one. I mean, let's think about Taekwondo more kind of holistically for a second. I mean, it's a question I've been asking everyone I've been talking to. It's like, Taekwondo has this kind of perception, or not perception. Taekwondo is a traditional martial arts with the gear on and the belts, and you stand in the lines and you do the stuff, and you have your forms and your patterns, and all of this, right? And how do you think that stays relevant in the modern world, where things like MMA are really taking off and really, because everything's on the internet now, so you can see everything, and people, before it was like, everything was behind the door of the dojang and you couldn't see what was going on in this special place, but now everything is open, and therefore everything is open to criticism. So I mean, how do you see Taekwondo as a relevant martial art in the modern martial arts landscape?
Well, I think it still has a lot to offer. Certainly somebody, I think, who's a parent will look at a martial art, something like that we do, our Taekwondo, and they'll see the traditional elements. I mean, I get it regularly where somebody comes to try out a class and they go, oh my God, that was incredible. How do you control 20 odd kids for an hour and they're hanging on every word you're saying? And, they can see the respect and different things that are there. I think we'll always have that there, that parents will latch on and they say, right, that really is something that I'd love my kid to be part of. Now, you'll always get the parents who think that you're going to fix their broken child. How can you be so bold? But no, I mean, it goes in conjunction with, I suppose, teachings at home. I mean, if somebody's going to bring up their kid with a little bit of discipline and that kind of stuff, you can help them out. But I think we'll always have that great thing to add, which is our discipline and our respect. And that traditional part will always be something that, as I said, I think the parents will latch onto for their kids' benefit. As an adult, as a teenager, someone in their early 20s, it's less of interest to them. So again, somebody who thinks they're Conor McGregor or whatever it may be, or they want to just go and do kickboxing and kick pads and stuff like that, they may have less interest in it. But I think from the kids, maybe the older adults will start to latch onto that again. And as well, I think that it gives a mental space. So if you're somebody who works, you might have a stressful job. this element of discipline, this element of self-control, all this kind of stuff really feeds into you going, well, I need that to keep myself sane. So I think we probably have no problem attracting the kids. A bit of an issue maybe around the mid to late teens, the early 20s. And I think once we get that little bit older group again, I think they see a huge attraction in that. Well, all these tenets to take on that we adhere to, this is actually something that can make a difference in my life.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's an interesting problem how, you know, because like you say, we're very well perceived in the kids space, you know, Taekwondo for kids Taekwondo, and I think sometimes get a little bit of a bad rap for by comparison to sort of, you know, full contact fighting, you know, and it's like, you know,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting one. I think, you know, like I said to Mr. Byrne the other day, there's no good way to get kicked in the face. So, like, I mean, you know, I think it's easy to look on the outside until you're actually playing the game.
Yes.
But yeah, certainly I think there's a lot to offer people. I mean, that's one of the things that I really love about it, is that, like you say, that clarity, that headspace that it gives you. You know, that was one of the reasons I kind of came back to Taekwondo properly, was to get that sort of, you know, remove myself from my life, just to go there and get shouted at or whatever it might be for an hour, and all is well in the world, you know.
Exactly. I mean, gee, I remember like during the recession back in 2009 to 2013. If I wasn't training, I probably would have gone mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly gives a great thing. I mean, there's a huge attraction there. Certainly, maybe as an adult, especially when you go to, say, to the class in Greystones, as we talked about earlier, that it's that camaraderie, that there's kind of like a support network there. But you can focus on purely your space, what you're doing, and how you're improving. But yet you can latch on to other people. You can use them to help you, you know, get on and feel better about yourself, and even just purely getting better at Taekwondo. I mean, it has a lot to offer. It's fantastic.
Big time. And I think we often sometimes just put a lot of emphasis on that 1% that are elite internationals, and they're fantastic, and I'm not trying to disparage that in any way. It's amazing to see, and I love watching them, and they're heroes, you know. But 99% of people aren't going to elite competitive levels. And yet there's a whole community in Taekwondo that's still hanging around. So there is something there for people of all abilities and sizes and ages and shapes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, even when you hear from a parent of one of the kids saying, God, he couldn't wait to get down here tonight, or it's stuff like that, you just go, well, actually, yeah, this is great. You're helping people, which is brilliant.
It's great to see that, actually. And I find it's funny watching parents take it up, having watched their children. I've often seen that, and I remember my favorite story is a dad who was watching his two girls training for ages, and I think they got to sort of green or blue belt before he started, and he beat them to black belt. They were disgusted. But it's good. It was a good story.
I'm all right in the front anyway.
yeah, you're safe. You know, you're safe.
We're safe for the moment.
Yeah, exactly, unless you get demoted for
well, bad behavior again. Messing in class.
So nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Fancy a few rapid fire questions to round it out?
Oh, go on, sure.
Okay, come on. Favorite foot technique?
Ooh, favorite foot technique: jumping back, reverse hook and kick.
Jumping back, reverse hook and kick. Favorite hand technique?
Oh, knife hand strike.
Pattern of your choice?
Ooh, Chung Mu.
Chung Mu. I kind of saw that one coming.
I could have said something like Ulji there, but no, Chung Mu has always been one of my favorites, big time.
Okay, spin that one. Least favorite pattern?
Chung Gun.
Chung Gun. Yeah, okay. I'm in your camp there. Anyway, what about this one? If you are given 3 boards to break, what's your technique that you go to?
Can I break them all at once?
You have to.
Okay. Easy. I suppose a Doro Yopchagi.
Good old Doro Yopchagi. Super. Super.
All day long, and an easy one. Well, that I find anyway. Put it on it.
Section of the test that you least look forward to, and section of the test that you most look forward to.
I suppose patterns would be the one I'd be more favorable towards. Possibly let me think. The fitness stuff, the new fitness stuff. Because I haven't had to do it yet.
Yeah. Well, your time will come.
Yeah.
It's good crack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Super. I mean, look, it's been a really interesting conversation. Been really good to go down sort of memory lane and sort of talk about where we are now. And you know, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I mean, if people want to find you in your club, do you want to plug it now? And let's
Yeah. Sure. So it's Kicksport Taekwondo in Goatstown. We don't have a website necessarily, but you find us on Facebook, Kicksport Taekwondo. Very easy to find me. If anyone needs anything, always happy to help.
And it's kids and adults as well.
Kids and adults, yeah. Abuse for adults is also.
Awesome, Mr. Butler. It's been a great chat. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
That's all, Mr. Connor. Good to talk to you, and I hope you're well.
Yeah, you too. Look after yourself and look after the family.
You too. All right. See you later.
Thanks, sir. Cheers.
Bye-bye.